Well, hello everyone. It's Super Jesus Jackson, your favorite man-child, back at it again with yet another video, this time talking about James Cameron's Aliens. I recently saw this movie, and just as a huge disclaimer, I'm 26 years old, okay? So I was born well after this movie was made and released. But, given the recent release of Alien Romulus, which I watched yesterday, I decided to, watch Aliens. I had watched Alien, I think a couple months ago or something like that. Obviously, that was directed by Ridley Scott. Aliens is directed by James Cameron. There was kind of a big hiatus between the first Alien and Aliens, but I felt like I had to watch Aliens, as well to get the full-on Alien Romulus experience. Now, this video is not going to be talking about my thoughts on Romulus because that would be a whole other video. And let me just say right off the bat, I'm not a huge fan of Alien Romulus. We'll just leave it there. But I think as I talk about Aliens, maybe it'll give you an idea of why I wasn't a huge fan of Romulus. But again, this video is about Aliens. I gotta say this again. I'm 26 years old, and I think, my perspective, without being too egotistical, is an interesting one because of my age. I'm used to movies that have amazing special effects, right? Budgets up the wazoo, just gigantic blockbusters. And I think, a lot of the science fiction movies from the 1970s, from the 80s, when you think of another Cameron movie like Terminator, they were incredibly unique and incredibly interesting because of the time that they were made in, right? It's just interesting to hear for anyone who grew up watching Aliens or who was there in the theaters when it came out, because, a lot of you out there love this movie. This movie is considered to be one of the greatest action sci-fi horror, movies of all time, and rightfully so. And a lot of this spurred because, I have a coworker who loves Aliens, and he was very excited to listen to what I thought about Aliens. And when I went up to him and he was like, "So what'd you think? What'd you think?" And I was like, he was like, "Oh no." He's like, don't tell me. But what's interesting is that my perspective on it and my opinion on this movie is, I think, very nuanced. Again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, or horse, or whatever the hell the saying is. Look, I'm just going to say, I love this movie. I think it's a great film. Okay. It's a fantastic film. But it's interesting because, like I said, I'm not 40 years old. I'm not 50 years old. I'm a 26-year-old who has seen amazing sci-fi movies like Dune Part 2, right? Or like Man of Steel, or Blade Runner, 2049, which, that has another amazing sci-fi movie, apparently, that I have to watch, the original Blade Runner, of course, another Ridley Scott film. But, think of any other, action sci-fi blockbuster, or just any other blockbuster that you can think of. I've seen all those movies that have amazing action sequences, that you can't even compare to action sequences from movies like Aliens. I love this movie, but at the same time, I think I have this part of my brain that very much has to look at the movie from the lens of the time it came out, 1986. A lot of people my age, I think, have to do that to enjoy movies of those times. You just can't enjoy things, simply in a vacuum. You have to add context to things in order to, I think, objectively, weirdly enough, critique it, in a fair way. And so when I think about it like that, Aliens becomes much greater, because I could tell you right off the bat, if I took out the context that this movie was made in 1986, it'd be a really fine movie, you know what I mean? But there's just so many things that you have to think about that the movie has related to when it came out that makes the movie stand out even more. However, the greatest thing about Aliens to me, because people when they think of Aliens, they're like, oh my God, it is the action heavy, it is an antithesis to the original Alien by Ridley Scott. I was looking forward to that because I as much as I love the original Alien, which I'm just going to say, I love the original Alien, but that one very much so, I also have to kind of think about when it came out, and it helps me kind of respect it a lot more and love it. But I will say the first time I watched that film, it was an incredible slow burn to the point where I was like, I don't really get how this movie's so great, which is blasphemy. But, then I thought about it and I was like, that's the whole point. The movie is a slow burn. It's about the atmosphere. It's a horror film, that sort of thing, right? And so when I thought about it like that, then I was like, okay, yeah, it's a masterpiece. I get it. But Aliens, I was excited because people were like, if you were not a huge fan of the slow burn, you're going to love Aliens because it's action packed, it's war. And then I watched the movie and first of all, I was like, well, at the first hour, because the director's cut is like 2 hours and 37 minutes or something like that. And, it's a pretty slow burn still, the first 40 minutes or so of the movie, which is, whatever. It's a setup. The movie's kind of long anyway, whatever. But then it gets going, of course, and I was pleasantly surprised. The movie, the way it builds tension, the way it leads up to the action sequences is just so incredibly masterful and amazing that when you actually do get the action sequence, it just is not fulfilling. Like, it is fulfilling in the sense of like, okay, thank God, we have a release here, there's a climax, yada, 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 right? But like, they're not my favorite part of the movie, because the rising action, for example, Ripley's team, the Marines, just kind of going throughout this ship and just kind of analyzing the area and this curiosity and just this slow walking, and the sound of their footsteps, that 1980s sound of soldier footsteps. Them doing that is so incredibly satisfying to me. And hearing their little tracker, sort of that's calculating, where warmth is, where movement is throughout the ship, and that little kind of submarine blinking noise that it has. That is so satisfying to me. And just this incredible, build up, and the tension of like, oh, are we going to get an alien here? Are we going to get an alien here? Are we going to get an alien here? There's a scene with Ellen Ripley towards the end of the movie where she comes back to save this child who she grew a bond with. She goes back and she's a complete badass. She's got all this gear on her and stuff like that. And she's walking slowly, back into this area. And she's, walking down and she's looking around and she's walking downstairs and stuff like that. And the movie takes its time so much showing characters observing and looking around. And they do the same thing with the Marines. Again, there's so much time that the search process takes in the movie, And it's so interesting, it's so unique, it's so curious, and it is so masterfully done, and it builds so much tension. And those moments right there are, number one, you can say they're a product of a film that is a product of its time, because a lot of films today, for example, they move much quicker. Even Alien Romulus, which I'll say, moves much quicker. The action gets to you much quicker. When it comes to Alien and Aliens, because of the time that these movies were made, you can say, one, that they had to double down so much on those build-up moments, on those tension moments, in order to really give an effective movie, because when everything goes down and the action ramps up, the special effects cannot entertain you because they're not great. You know what I mean? Like, it's not possible because of the technology at the time. And this is also more evident too when in Alien and Aliens, you barely see the enemy. You barely see the xenomorph. And when you do see them, it's like sudden, kind of, few second shots of them moving in the background. And then when even there's full action and, for example, the sentries, the machine guns are shooting at the aliens, you mostly see the sentry guns firing, and then you'll see little shots of aliens getting shot and like acid, and which are basically just a bunch of prosthetics, that are being shot at and just, like just exploding, or not really being shot at. Probably it's just being exploded, and the acid comes out of it. But these aren't moving creatures, that's not CGI. And what's interesting is that in Romulus, that happens as well, where you really don't see these creatures. And when you do see them, it's really close up, which is very easy to do. Or it's a costume, or, kind of like Chucky, where it's an animatronic or whatever, you can practically do those effects, when it's really close up, something, like that. But, when you think of regular sci-fi with the CG creatures or something like that, you don't really see that. You don't really see action sequences with xenomorphs, kind of in full frame, or whatever. Not even in the way you see the face huggers, in Romulus. Interesting is that Romulus also, that it doesn't do it with the xenomorphs. It kind of respects the same thing. Like, it does it in the same way that the first Alien and Aliens did, where, you know, they're kind of in the background. You barely see them moving. They're kind of in the shadow. And when you do see them, you just kind of see them get shot, and you do see them kind of move occasionally, but like not really. And same thing with Aliens, you know, it's just very short shots, very, very small minimum shots. And here's the thing is that those things, those elements make the tension, make the horror, make the movie more effective, right? Because we know this in horror movies, it's the things that are scary are the things that you can't see. It's the unknown. That's what makes it so scary. It's the same reason why the face hugger in Aliens, right? When Ellen Ripley and the little girl, they're in the room, they can't see the face hugger. It's walking around, it's hiding or whatever, and that's the tension. That is part of the element of that scene, right? A lot of these elements that make these movies so effective is because of their limitations, because of their technical limitations, right? And so it is interesting that Romulus kind of follows that as well, even though it's 2024, right? It doesn't have to do those limitations. It doesn't have to follow those limitations. But Aliens, you know, that's why it's an effective movie, partly because of that. And so it's interesting. It's an interesting dichotomy, because it's like, is it the fact that it is technologically limited? You know, is that why they ultimately did those decisions? Or is it purely a creative choice? Or is it a little bit of both? And they doubled down on trying to make those limitations, you know, enhance, you know, use those limitations even more to their advantage. And double down on the buildup, double down on the atmosphere, on the prosthetics, on the environment, you know, to make the movie more effective. And it just is. I mean, it's an incredibly effective movie because of those things, you know, and maybe it's a little bit of both. And at the end of the day, it's still just genius artistry at work, right? Just those incredible moments of buildup and tension, amazing. And the limited amount that we see the monsters, you know, makes the movie better. It makes the elements, the tone of the movie scarier. It makes it just more effective. The scene where we finally do get to see the aliens, you know, it's so funny. It's so amazing that they were there the entire goddamn time. You know, they were just blending into the environment and they slowly started coming out. Oh my God, it's incredible. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. And the same thing happens in Romulus. But in Aliens, it's phenomenal. And again, a lot of those things is, you know, we're not seeing them fully, you know what I mean? They're kind of blended in the background, and you can't really make them out perfectly, but you just see something moving in the background. It's just incredible, right? And now I will say with Aliens, with the exception of the last act of the film, the last fight of the film, I mean, that was a mix of animatronic and, you know, special effects and stuff like that, and puppetry, and that's an amazing feat on its own. I mean, and it looks very 80s, looks kind of cheesy, but like it is so incredibly effective. And again, it's that thing where you kind of have to think about the time, you know, and that makes you, you know, really love it more, you know, because of how impressive it was. Or just think of how you would have felt if you were a person living in 1986 watching that. You would have been like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? And so you kind of have to do that for yourself as well, right? It's an incredible, incredible film that uses limitation, doubles down on the limitation, doubles down on the things that come out of limitation to make the movie so effective, you know, with what it's trying to go for. It's trying to go for sci-fi, horror, you know, tension, thrill, you know, like it goes on all of that, and it's so amazing. And another thing, probably one of the biggest things, if not some would say the biggest thing, is of course the main character, Ellen Ripley. You know, the guy that I was talking to at work, you know, he called her, you know, one of the greatest, if not the greatest heroine in cinema. And I can see why, definitely now. The thing about it is, right, in Alien, she was sort of a side character, initially introduced sort of as a side character, and she was clearly smarter, you know, than everyone, or at least she was very principled. And then she ended up surviving. She ended up being the person that survived. And then in Aliens, you know, she's hardened, you know, she's a veteran now. She's dealt with these creatures. And so she has a leg up over all these other Marines who are just brash and hasty and, you know, egotistical. You know, she slowly becomes the leader, you know, she takes charge, you know, again, you know, she's in the background, and then she's forced to take lead, you know, to do something principled, you know, which is to save the team, you know, because the main guy, he wasn't doing it for God, or, you know, a cowardly reason or for whatever reason. And then she took hold and she saved the team. And then after that, her and Hicks, became the leaders. As the movie progresses, she becomes even more of a badass again. Towards the end of the movie, of course, Hicks is badly injured. She puts him to safety, and then she's like, I gotta go back, which is like so goddamn badass, right? The thing about it, and I'm not going to take credit for this, although I probably would have, thought about this myself at some point. I know I did faintly think about it while I was watching the movie. The motherly nature of Ripley, right? Like her desire to save this kid. Now, of course, she lost her child, she lost her daughter, and so that's why this girl forms a really great connection with Ripley, because she sees this daughter that she lost, right? And so, her selflessness, right, to save this little girl, is amazing. I will say that the little girl's background and like her parents and stuff like that, just, I will say, not the best writing ever. It's a little lazy. It's like, what the hell are these parents doing? Why are they doing this? It's just a little bizarre, but whatever. Let's just excuse that. But Ripley, this motherly, maternal, protective nature that she has, that contrasts her badassery, as a soldier, as an intelligent person, right? As a leader, like that is amazing, and that's what makes her so nuanced, so effective, so deep. And yes, just such an effective character. And it's a moving character, and I think in a world where sometimes we do, for the sake of doing it, we use diversity, and we put female characters into things, just because they're female, you know what I mean? Like, and also not only that, but do it and then give them masculine elements, just head on, and just make them as masculine as you possibly can. Sometimes, that's not as effective as creating a character that is nuanced and that has depth to them. You know what I mean? Like, Ripley is an incredibly effective character. And that's not to say, I'm not going to be here and tell you that that's not to say that there are no effective, one-note characters. You know what I mean? Like, we see that with males all the time, right? We just, I don't know, when you think of like Hercules or something, right? You just think of some dude who's just a dude, a strong man, and that's all he has, and he has all those, he has discipline and valor and courage and strength and all that, like, and there's no like, feminine part to him, right? Although I'm sure there's some iteration of Hercules that is nuanced, or maybe the original version was nuanced. I'm not sure. I don't even know where or when Hercules came from. I don't even know, okay? Anyways, it's Greek, right? I think it is. Anyways, when it comes to, I'm not here to tell you that, just because you make a one-note character doesn't mean that they're not effective. What's interesting is that when you do inevitably make a character that is maybe meant to be one note, or is not, and you just create the character with depth from its inception, it can often make for a better character, okay? This is the same case with men, you know what I mean? Like, to me, my favorite characters are the ones, my favorite male characters are the ones that have depth. It's the same reason why I love Zack Snyder's Superman, because, and not only is, Superman's a dude, but also there is depth and contradiction even in him being Superman. We think of Superman as, a powerful, person, but who's also incredibly kind, always principled, and never does the wrong thing, and never has any doubt. But Zack Snyder puts some more depth into the character and puts a little bit more flaw to the character, perhaps, at times. And it makes him more interesting, right? It makes him more layered. I don't know, when you think of Russell Crowe in Gladiator, Maximus is a very, very man's man. But yet, at the end of the day, he values family so much, and his wife and his children, and he just wants to see them again. Like we in real life, it's very easy to stereotypically think of men as characters that don't care about family, right? That are just going out hunting, hunting as a metaphor, doing all the action, never really taking never ever paying attention to the wife or to the kids. You know what I mean? We always think of the woman doing that, right? Doing all the loving, doing all the all the compassion, sort of, showing more kindness in the family union, in the family structure. We don't really think of men doing that, but in a lot of great, film and literature and stories and art, the greatest of men are the ones that have that duality, who are powerful, who are courageous, but who also have this sensitivity to them, who also care to just get home and hug their wife. It's the same reason why people love the Hulk, and always it's such a powerful image to see the Hulk kind of de-Hulk right in front of his girlfriend, of his love interest. It's that idea, right? It's that duality, right? Where this man is very strong and very powerful, but there's a vulnerability to him. And so a soft side, right? And so that's the same case with female characters. And if you really pay attention, it's not about male or female. It's about having duality. That's really what it's about. So it has nothing to do with the sex that you have or the gender. It has to do with having duality. And so with Ellen Ripley's character, there is a duality. She's a badass, but she has this maternal nature. And what's interesting, and this is more so the interesting case that my colleague made, the alien is a xenomorph. The queen alien, the queen xenomorph, has that as well. It is such a powerful creature. It is a immortal creature in many ways. It is almost a perfect, creature, and it has a maternal nature to it as well. It's a little twisted, of course, but it has it. And the Ellen Ripley is contrasted and mirrored by that queen xenomorph, because we get that scene where she has the little girl in her hands, and she is surrounded by all these eggs from this queen. And they both kind of make a deal. Ellen, kind of, I don't know what she does, but she does something to let the xenomorph know. And these are intelligent creatures, which I think was interesting. They in this one, we see a little bit of their intelligence. And the queen xenomorph understands, okay, all right, because of what Ellen Ripley did, I believe. It's like, I'm going to walk out. I have my child. You have your children. Let me walk out. Let's not harm each other's children because we ultimately care about them. Let me walk out and I won't mess with you, But of course, the queen xenomorph, she starts, I don't know, something triggers the hatching of one of the eggs. And basically, I think a face hugger was going to come out of it or something. And Ripley was like, really? I thought we had a deal here. And so then she goes, she starts shooting. And, but then they have this ultimate fight, this badass fight, this mother against mother fight. You know what I mean? And it's just, it's awesome. It has so much metaphor, has so much meaning, It's not just an alien fight for an alien fight. There is character and there's meaning to this alien and to its relationship that it has with the main character. And I just think that's so brilliant. All of those reasons and more are why Aliens is an incredible, incredible film. And, I love its use of, going back to a little bit of the technology again, I love its use of miniatures, with a lot of the vehicles that are used and stuff like that. You could sometimes tell that they're miniatures, but it's so cool. It almost makes it more cool. The fact that again, those limitations make for some really cool, innovative ways to make those special effects. And, it's really cool to see. And then also, I have to say, just, the dialogue and the story and just, it's so James Cameron. And it kind of pisses me off that people who like this movie hate Avatar. You know what I mean? They're the same fucking thing. You know what I mean? They're executed in the same way. You know what I mean? This film is incredibly, it has, moments of kind of, really sophisticated soap opera-ness. It has a lot of those moments, think of the fucking, get away from her, you bitch, which is another, as sophisticated as it may be and as interesting as it is, it still has a little bit of, some soap opera-ness to it. I'm not gonna lie, a little bit of cheesiness. But it is incredibly, like I said, sophisticated because she is saying, she's calling the queen xenomorph a bitch, you know what I mean? Which is, It's female. But, you know, it's mother to mother, you know, they're trying to save their children. It's such a perfect thing to say, you know what I mean? And it's cheesy, but at the same time, it justifies itself because of how sophisticated it is when you think of the metaphors, you know what I mean? And that's brilliant writing. That's genius. And that's how you make a movie to be as commercial and as approachable as possible while still not compromising, you know, sophisticated elements and compromising, you know, actually masterful storytelling and cinematic quality. You know what I mean? Like, that's what Aliens is. You know, it's got that cheesiness, that cringiness a little bit. It's got that sort of soap opera feel to it with the Marines kind of being stereotypes. You know what I mean? Like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, people who love Aliens, like, just, and then they're going to go shit on Avatar. Like, it's dumb. It's dumb. Avatar is same thing. You know, it is so sophisticated. It is so masterful, but it is also incredibly soap opera-ish. And that's when you think of, you know, why pop music is so successful. You know, because a lot of it is very approachable. It's very commercial. It's very basic or cheesy or whatever. But the good ones, the great ones, have those elements, but kind of go beyond that and still don't compromise, you know, actual sophisticatedness, you know, like sophistication. I can't say things. Incredible film. And also, as a final note, buy the movie in 4K. It looks absolutely incredible. Sometimes it looks like a modern movie. I am not going to lie to you. And that's what James Cameron strives for with these 4K transfers. For those of you who hate on James Cameron's transfers, I haven't seen his others. I've seen Aliens so far. I have True Lies. People have complained about AI and, you know, sort of just kind of brushing up the grain and stuff like that. Stop it. Just stop. James Cameron, clearly, he's a pioneer of, like, special effects and of just, you know, he was there, you know what I mean? Like, the Aliens was the peak of, like, you know, fucking, you know, special effects at the time. Same thing with Avatar. So it makes sense why he would want to perfect his 4K transfers and modernize them. You know, as long as it looks good. Like I said, I think Aliens looks amazing. Sometimes I do notice, like, oh, it looks a little bit brushed up here. But it's fine, and there were way more moments where I was like, this looks incredible, looks like a modern movie, and it doesn't compromise the fact that it's still a 1980s movie. So, but anyways, guys, those are my thoughts on Aliens. You know, I was just inspired to talk about it because I've recently watched it. I'm 26 years old. You know, I'm not a 40-year-old, 50-year-old telling you how Aliens is, you know, the greatest goddamn movie of all time. You know, I think, it is really cool and really amazing that a movie that precedes me, you know, like, that I could still love it, you know, for legitimate reasons. You know, I truly feel like when I watched this film, I wasn't like thinking that it was awesome because everyone else says that it's awesome. There is something to the greatness, you know, and there is a reason why people say it's so great. And I can see it. And so, you know, there are plenty of movies, though, and plenty of other things that I hate and dislike and don't think are very great, or don't think are that great, even though people say they are. Things that are much older than me. And I will stand my ground on that. But Aliens is fantastic. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of the movie. And let me know what you think of Romulus as well. I already told you I'm not a huge fan of Romulus. I think it played too safe and didn't try to be very original. You know, I think the fan service was a little bit too much. Yeah, I just think I just think it's such a disappointment. Why would you want to make a movie that so very much mirrors, you know, other great movies in that franchise? Aliens and Alien. It just seems like a creative waste of time and a creative slap in the face. I don't know. It's just very, very disappointing. It just felt like I was watching Alien and Aliens again. It doesn't feel like I was doing anything original. But let me know in the comment section below what you think of the movie, of Aliens, of Romulus. Give this video a like if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this content, of course. Share with your alien-loving friends if you will. If it's your birthday, happy birthday to you, you beautiful creature. But I think that's it for me. You all take care, stay safe, and until next time, I love you.